Good morning, everybody. Today's historical science, uh, moment or story is about the Poison Squad. I've got a picture here labeled the Poison Squad. 12 or 11, 11 very well-dressed gentlemen. And these guys came to be known as the Poison Squad because of the very special job that they were hired to do. Now, let's go back in time here. From the earliest development of humans, we've known clean water tastes better. Fresh meat tastes better than meat that's been sitting around. We didn't necessarily understand the science behind food spoilage, but we did put together that at a certain point, food stops being tasty and good and ends up tasting bad or smelling bad, and then that makes us sick, makes us, not operate like we normally do. Very, very early on, those very first conclusions were made. And one of the things that one of the specific germs that we talk about anytime we get close to foodborne illness is salmonella. And that's why they have Lysol commercials where they wipe away the juices from the raw chicken, and because it kills salmonella. Or they may show it cleaning up raw eggs, kills salmonella. That's why people aren't supposed to eat cookie dough that has raw eggs in it. Salmonella worry. That's when extra laws were put in place on reptile ownership, because some reptiles are uh, known to be vectors of salmonella. So I mean, that craze. Once we identified that that was a specific germ that would cause foodborne illness, we were like, no, get it away from us, right? Like we were, salmonella, no. Okay, so we put all that together early on, and we were very, very thorough with it, right? And so we figured out, cooking food and blah, 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 ways to avoid food spoilage. But then we sort of started running into a different problem, because then we had people who were tampering with food as time has gone on, and we do things like have grocery stores and butcher shops and things like that. Now you have people that are tampering with food in order to make it look more appealing so that they can sell it. So the food looks good, and sometimes smell can be disguised so that it still smells good, but it might actually be toxic in there. Something might be wrong, in the food. Okay, so here, in the early 1900s, bacteria got a new partner in their never-ending quest to make food dangerous. Humans. Many packaged goods ended up riddled with preservatives that had never been tested for safety. Pesticides were being used on produce without any thought of what they may do in human bodies. Chemicals such as borax, formaldehyde, and strychnine were added to meat to preserve it, and some foods were stuffed with fillers, including chalk, like you would use for a chalkboard or on your sidewalk, or sawdust, to fool the consumer into thinking it was fresher or more wholesome. So, borax is a cleaner that I'm sure you may have heard mentioned in a slime making video. Formaldehyde is often used to preserve dead animals that you're studying, for science. You can cover a specimen of a living tissue in formaldehyde and save it that way. So that's the kind of thing we want in our food, like extra added into our food, right? Yeah. Yeah. And what's the last one? Strychnine. Strychnine is a type of specifically poison. Like it's specifically used as poison for like pest control and stuff like that. So this was not stuff that we were like wanting them to add into food because it actually would help somehow. It would just keep it from spoiling as fast, and they didn't really think about like the end. They didn't think it all the way through. So, how do we find out what effects these chemicals have on the human body? Well, the best way is to have a bunch of human bodies volunteer for you, or get money to fund the research to pay some human bodies to come eat tiny, tiny, tiny amounts of poison in order to see over the span of, you know, a good long time, maybe even a few years, what those effects are in the body. Hence, the Poison Squad is born. Dr. Wiley was given $5,000 as a payment approved like from Congress to figure out, okay, all of this stuff that's being added into food, what is like the safe level? How much can we add before it becomes unsafe? That kind of thing. So his advertisement saying, hey, I need 12 people is 12 young clerks, vigorous and voracious. So he wanted 12 young men, and he wanted them to be, you know, like full of life and active and driven, like determined. You know, he didn't want anybody, specifically, he didn't want anybody like shy or that maybe didn't lead quite as active a lifestyle. Maybe they were more laid back, more lean. He wanted, you know, people who tended to be more active and muscular, things like that. Once people began to respond, he had an in-depth screening process for them to pass. They all had to pass the civil service exam and demonstrate that they were of high moral character. So he not only has them take the civil service exam, which just like makes sure that you're qualified in the different areas that they look for, if you can pass the exam, if you have that knowledge. But also they had to demonstrate that they were good people, capable of making the right choices and high moral character, like a good role model, you know. So the requirements here, they're pretty tough. You have to be a good person, a strong person, a determined person, and you have to be willing, because he's gonna, he tells them, each time when he hires people, okay, the lucky chosen, 12 or so that he chose, would be asked to pledge for a year to only eat what was given to them, even if it had, you know, poison in it. It's fine. So every time he hired a poison squad, they had to agree to a whole year. And yeah, I guess he wanted to make sure that he had people who would really, you know, follow the rules too. So very strict restrictions on this. But then, whereas you would think that that might run people off, like it's called the Poison Squad, and I have to answer all these questions and all that, I don't know if I want to do it. No, he had people writing him saying, hey, let me do this. Listen to this letter. Dear Sir, I have read in the paper of your experiments on diet. I have a stomach that can stand anything. I have a stomach that will surprise you. I am afflicted with 7 diseases, never went to a doctor for 15 years. They told me 15 years ago that I could not live 8 months. What do you think of us? My stomach can hold anything. So, After they make this pledge, they've gone through all of the screening and stuff. He brings them in. They're all set at a table, and it's all set like just for a regular dinner, you know, so they're not like in a prison or anything like that, you know. And so they would all sit down and they'd have you know, the entire table set up just like it was a totally normal dinner, except for people would be going around taking vital signs, you know, like measuring heart rates, and breathing, and taking blood pressure and things like that. So um, it's just this totally normal dinner, but then everybody, you know, has to have their turn with the doctor, and then they're served the food, and it has whatever it has in it, and you just have to eat it. I don't know. Like I don't know that I could sign up. I don't think I could sign up for this. I think it would be too freaky. But I mean, these guys, they like challenged him to do this. So, but this is actually what led to the Pure Food and Drug Act, and then the Food and Drug Administration that we have now, the FDA, which is who sets all of these restrictions on food and medications and things like that, requiring that they have a very high level of purity, and they don't have things like chalk or sawdust or poison in them. And so that's where this came from. So if you like the story, then please comment below in the Google Classroom and let me know you liked it. And if you didn't like the story, tell me why. And if you had a favorite part, tell me that. And anything that stuck out to you, please tell me. All right. Y'all have a good day. Bye, my little ducklings.